Communicating your ideas, your point of view, or your requests to others is something we do every day. Whether it's negotiating a deal, enrolling a new client, or settling an argument amongst squabbling teenagers. Being able to communicate effectively and being understood is crucial not just to your success, but also to your peace of mind and well-being. Although one very overlooked tool in your toolbox is silence. Not over-talking. Not explaining your perspective from a bazillion different angles. Silence is the pause. Silence creates a gap. But silence freaks a lot of us out. Silence is the blank space between words that spark true understanding and insight. In a world where we are bombarded 24/7 over demands on your time and energy and attention, it is silence that gives a really refreshing change of pace. Now, one of the most important aspects in leadership is being able to recognize the power of your words. Just as important, however, is the ability to recognize the power of your silence. Now, according to Ellis, no relation, when used with intention and purpose, silence is a communication superpower. For some, however, silence comes naturally, but for those less fortunate, it's those of us that need to work and become comfortable with silence. However, many of us still need to learn that practice and learn the art. Silence can yield much more power than words. I believe it was Leonardo da Vinci, the well-known artist, turned around to say, "Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence." Leaders know how to use silence as a tactic for speaking up for themselves and as an opportunity to lead. I learned the power of silence through a pretty tough experience, which I'll come to in a moment, but also when training as a life coach. Having conversations with clients which gives them a safe space means that we will encounter silence. Some deal with it well, others don't. There is inevitably a desire to fill the space. This can lead to someone saying more than they wanted to, or embracing the silence to give themselves time to think. Either way, it can be perfectly characterized by another quote by Ellis that says, "Silence is the blank space between the words that spark true understanding and insight." With that in mind, we know that it can be a powerful weapon in the leader's arsenal. So let's have a look at the 6 ways leaders use silence as their superpower. Number 1, it creates trust. If you want to develop effective relationships, you must build trust. It's inevitable, you can't avoid it. To build trust, you must listen. There's a reason why you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. When you want to establish a relationship, do not do all of the talking. Introduce yourself, ask the questions, ask about the other person, and then listen. Listen about the other person. Listen to what they're saying. When the other person realizes that you are actually listening to them, they will listen to you. In the life coaching sense, we use something called active listening. This is understanding and listening to what's not being said. It could be non-verbal cues, it could be body language, it could be the inclination of how things are said. It's hugely important, and the more you can understand around what's not being said, the greater your listening becomes, and in turn, the more beneficial silence will be. Number 2 is about hammering home a point of view. A slightly crude way of saying, but if you use too many words, the point you want to make can get lost. Silence or fewer words allows you to be heard when it matters. If you're in a meeting and you don't answer every question that is posed to the group, this is a good thing. Responding to 1 or 2 questions, for example, your words will become more memorable. They will be much more impactful than those who chime in at every possible moment. As a leader, keeping the answer to yourself is the real skill. Simply sit there, take in all the options, listen to the views, and then make your decision. Number 3 is all around leveling up negotiations. That's a very fancy way of saying how can you give yourself the best possible chance to get the outcome that you want from this negotiation. Silence when negotiating can be incredibly nerve-wracking. I'll go as far to say it can properly suck. certainly for the first few times you encounter it. When the other person is silent, you wonder what they might be thinking. But be strong, turn the tables. Let them wonder what you are thinking. Let's say the other party mentions a salary figure. Don't answer immediately. Don't say, "I'll take it," or "No." Pause. The discomfort of the silence will make the other person want to fill the void and start talking. Let them reveal the information that helps you to have the upper hand in moving forwards in the conversation. One of the best ways to do this is to tell a little bit of a story from a famed salesperson called Ziglar. He taught the power of silence as a technique to counter someone's objection to a price. If the potential customer said something like, "The price is too high," Ziglar would counter by asking, "The price is too high?" And then biting his lip. That was a bit over-exaggerated, but you know what I mean. By turning the objection into a question and then going silent, he could put enormous pressure on the customer. More often than not, the person solved their objection themselves. It might not be comfortable, and it might take real self-will and control not to say anything and embrace the silence, but it is hugely powerful. Number 4 is around properly empowering others. Quite simply, leaders empower others. That's it. They rarely tell people what to do. Rather, leaders provide others the opportunity to identify the roadmap for achieving the goals they want to set out to achieve. Leaders want to know what other people think. So the next time you want to propose a new project, ask your staff or your direct reports to share their thoughts with you. Let them speak up with their ideas. Leaders give others the opportunity to lead. This will help you to gain respect and in turn increase your power. Now, somebody that comes to mind is Simon Sinek, who is the absolute master at articulating silence. And I would highly recommend checking out his book called Leaders Eat Last. Number 5 is around speeding up the answer. The sooner you become silent, the quicker you will get to your answer. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. So many people are guilty of asking a question and simply not stopping at the question mark, only to keep on going and blabbering on and making life difficult for themselves. Ask the question and stop. Don't continue. Don't carry on with explanations or excuses. Anything you say after the question mark will only dilute your question and the power of its message. This then detracts from your original question. At the end of the day, remember, mum's the word. Now, I will tell a very quick story here that I learnt this firsthand and the hard way when working as an accountant at Ernst & Young, because I prepared an audit report and I put it in front of the partner because it was going through a review, and he asked a particular question around how I performed something and what the client's response was. So I gave him my response and I was very comfortable in that, and all of a sudden he just sat back and pondered, didn't say anything. Immediately my heart started beating quicker and I could felt myself getting a little uncomfortable. Almost to fill the gap, I started talking and explaining more around what the client had said and the process that we'd gone through and ultimately how we'd ended up in that situation. That's when he leaned forward and dived into something that I'd said, and it turned out that we hadn't quite done it the right way. Now, should I have come out and said that at the beginning? Yes, absolutely, but he used silence against me. Now, I've also seen it done in boardrooms where there have been some proper ding-dongs going on and some negotiations, and silence is very powerful. My word, it is hugely uncomfortable, but it does get the results that you're looking for. So please, get to grips with using silence. Number 6 is around being grounded. You don't need other people to reap the power of silence. We very rarely take time out of our day just to be silent. Hold a moment of silence when you wake up in the morning. Maybe do some meditation. Go into a room during the workday and close the door for a few minutes. Pause just before you go to bed. You may meditate or just hold the silence. Either way, it gives you a chance just to collect your thoughts and stay grounded. Now, here's a quick tip. There's a very powerful technique, which is to ask a question and then bite your lip. Literally, biting your lip is an option, although that might hurt, but you must say nothing. I referred to this in the Ziglar example earlier, but even as the clock ticks away, it could be 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds or more, it might feel completely intolerable and a really awkward silence, but you must stay stumm. While you might not realize it, you are gaining a position of power by your willingness to keep quiet rather than filling that space with noise and energy. At this point, the other person will give away more than they wanted to, and you will have the upper hand. It is quite brutal, but unfortunately, that's how it works. Some say it's a bit like NLP, so the neuro-linguistic programming, and if you want to check out a book called The Game, I would say it's a great read, although it does raise some very moral questions. But being able to use silence is a skill we all need to learn, and it should not be underestimated. That's why we need to master the skill. Or if we don't want to master it, at least be aware of how silence is used by leaders and other people. You could always be on the receiving end of these applications, and wouldn't it be great to know what's happening rather than sit there and not really know? So the next time you're in a sales call or involved in a critical negotiation, consider biting your lip and keeping quiet. Not only will you get the chance to get more information, you might even get a better outcome as a result. But with that in mind, if you found this useful, I would highly recommend you check out this video here where I talk about how to negotiate like Harvey Specter from Suits. And with that, I will wish you all a good day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.